at some point, I really started slipping into this like manic phases. Okay. It's the best way we can describe it. And with the booze and stuff, it's like, for some reason, nobody ever called me on my shit, even if I kicked the hell out of somebody. You know what I mean? Like at that point, I should have really gotten put into jail, and that would have started the process of institutionalization and let's get to the bottom of this somehow. Which, looking back, I wish that kind of would have happened, maybe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. But would you be doing what you're doing now if you'd not have gone through that?
We don't need to do a guessing game. Let's just say, let me finish on my train of thought. Sure. So what happened is these things started getting progressively worse, and to where it came to society's attention. And what was happening is, like, I'm aware of a lot of things going on geopolitically that other people just ignore. And I know where they're going because I read the books on what the plans conceivably would be. I've been talking about this with like my Mormon neighbors and CIA neighbors and all these guys for years, and here it is, they're just doing it all. So at a certain point, during these like little conflicts that we had over the last couple of years that were very serious, they just went right over everybody's head. We got into it with Iran, and we got into it with China and North Korea. Seriously got into it. Everybody's just like, it's literally like kind of watching, it's kind of like living in 1984 or one of these, the movie Brazil. It just flies right over people's heads and you don't really get it. And Chinese news will show you 4 US jets getting shot down, and the US will go, oh, that's just a scene from Top Gun, those Chinese, you know, and it'll be right there on the internet for everybody. And it happens, it gets crazier than that. It gets a level with missiles, it gets on a level with, they do crazy stuff, you know. So at a certain point, a couple times, twice specifically, I felt like, fuck, they're literally gonna throw away every possibility and every dream I ever had just because they can't fucking cool it. They're like doing this plan of like this, capture all the carbon resources and fuck these guys because we're afraid of you know, the Chinese are gonna take over or whatever it is. You know, the Russians are gonna fuck us, or what, we got this plan or we want it this way. And it's like, it doesn't even have to be that way. So it led me to having to go to hospital because then it gets really far out a little bit, you know, like, long story short. So the first time they put me on some medicine, and, you know, I was like really adamant about, you can't give me anything that's gonna affect me because I have to feed my family and support myself. So you can't really make me a vegetable. And they don't really have an option. So that was interesting, but as it turns out, I have enough headroom that they could bring me down and I'm still above average. The only side effect is I can't really ride a bike now. I mean, it's made to, seriously, if you overexert yourself, it's made to like glue you to a floor so you don't have the energy to go psycho. But the first time I refused it when I was talking to the German doctor, I was like, he's like, so you're gonna take your medicine? I was like, no fucking way. There's no way. I'm gonna go about my business, and I'm not gonna drink or do anything. Just I'm gonna, chill out now that I know. It just happened again. Yeah. So then it was like, then I couldn't say that anymore. I was like, fuck, I've got a son the second time. So then I just took care of that. And now, knock on wood, it's all good. But I have to put everything into perspective, because I'm still aware of what's going on. So now we'll back up when I brought up Facebook for a second. Everybody was all jumping for the moon when Egyptian revolution started. Aren't you happy as they wrecked that country? Are you planning your next vacation there? Do you know what I mean? It wasn't a revolution. That's not what's going on. And they did that to the whole Middle East. They're like, oh yeah, let's get fucking Gaddafi. What did they do to Libya? Like, they did it from this country. I mean, they literally chased that guy out into the middle of the desert, shot all of his bodyguards up, and let those guys rape him with their cell phones and put all that stuff on the internet as they defiled his dead body. And that's like a hellhole. Nobody can do anything in any of those countries. They basically knocked down all those countries. They do it to Syria too. And the way they do it is they take one of these Qatari guys and they shoot at the police. They have two guys with the sign going, we're having a protest. The police shoot back and they go, they're shooting at protesters. In an Arabic culture, they bury the guy the next day, all of his cousins come out, and then the police are like, they're all going like this, fuck those guys. So then they hit the funeral and another guy dies, and it just goes back and forth, back and forth. So all you gotta do is either shoot the protesters or shoot the police. And you got, all of a sudden they're like, the UN's on the phone. Oh, the tyrants, they won't let these guys protest in the Middle East. So now they're taking down Syria. See what I'm saying? They put all these terrorists in there. It's so bad. It's such a bad situation. So it's such a bad way. And they got designs for a pipeline that goes all the way through. Turkey's next. They're going to cut right through Turkey. Watch. That's what Kurdistan's all about. It's going to go all the way across from Iran, all the way, through Iraq, through Syria, into Turkey. And that's the route of this pipeline that goes connected right through the Caspian Sea. And you laugh. They're going to tell you every single thing about it from now until kingdom come. So that's what's going on in the world specifically. And that's what Ukraine's about. See, if they make these deals in Russia where they'll tell you that Putin's bad. Some guy in Russia, they'll go, okay, who wants to sell all of, how many times did this happen with BP? Who wants to sell all of Russia's oil to BP? The guy raises his hands, all of a sudden he's running out of the country into the city of London with like 15 billion pounds weight. He's like, oh sure, I'll sell it to you. All you have to do is kill Putin and no problem. I was the other guy. And they just do this shit. Like, so knowing all this, that's why I'm so into art. And I work 6 days a week because this shit will kill you. You know?
Especially if you're of that headspace where it can come in and affect you.
Yeah, because, you know, I've literally watched, just leaning over at my wife's Facebook wall, everybody's, you know, exploding in glee over this, like I said, like Libya. They're just killing people by the zillions over there right now. And they knew that was going to happen. And then they went from, that guy was building a house for every single person in the country. He was building the largest water project in the world because the whole Sahara is sitting on top of an aquifer, and the Chinese were building it to it. When they said there was having a protest, the first thing that those guys did is they went 700 miles into the middle of the desert and attacked a Chinese refinery. China had to send a cruise ship and a destroyer first time outside of China to pick up all of their 35,000 workers because that wasn't a protest that they were doing. They were stopping China and Libya. They completely, all this stuff. And it's just like, so if you didn't even have a chance, like, you know, our perceptions are changed, like knowing about that stuff this way, it's like, what's going on with the Scottish election? Do you know what I mean? It's like if they got you zonked on that other level. But the whole Ukraine thing, what I was going to say is that, see, they're cutting off the gas to Europe, and that was the whole thing. But Germany already had its own Nord Stream. So they created this whole situation where half of Europe might not have, you know, winter's coming.
I think we've just found a new oil field just off the coast of northern England.
I know about that. Well, I know about that. But what I was saying outside about that stuff, you know, when England was saying, oh, Scotland only has this much oil. Listen, no country ever is going to tell you how much oil they have because it's a strategic reserve.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's just like, do you know what I mean? It's like telling somebody how much money you got under your bed. You know, it's like, you don't do it. And of course you want them to underestimate that because they're going to treat you differently. If they think you're running out of oil, they're going to wait you out. Norway's going to treat you differently. You know, it's all that stuff. But anyways.
You are really well informed. How much of it, how does this, knowing this stuff and being informed affect you and what you do? Because I know you've...
Good question. Because, and since this post-hospital and working on myself, right? To get to a place of balance in my life, right? To a good place for my family and my art and my business and all this stuff. You know, you've really got to focus on your life right now. And that stuff's got to radiate outwards. And you can be aware. But I find it's like useful, like you could either read the paper or you could have a cup of coffee, but maybe don't do both some days. you know? And you got to tear away from some of it because it's such a hollow victory too when you know where everything's headed. Like there's no like victory in that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, haha, I told you so.
Yeah.
Great, you guys started World War III, you know? But it really bugs the shit out of me, you know, this stuff a lot. Because I don't look at Russians as bad guys. And I know that Pussy Riot, this might blow your mind, but Pussy Riot, those guys weren't even a band. Those girls just jumped up and down in a sacred memorial. The Russians, the Soviets, blew that place up with dynamite with like 50 monks inside it. That place is like a sacred tomb for the actual monks, and they went in there and jumped around with crucifix to insult those guys. There was no music, there was no song, and those guys were paid by an NGO to do that. They knew that they were gonna get busted. It was fake. They made the song afterwards. They went into a tomb for the Russian Orthodox. It wasn't an ordinary church. And even if it was a church and you were against the church, that wasn't even an ordinary place. It was a place where Stalin executed all the monks that were there. At once, they put dynamite and blew them up. And they allowed them to have that space, you know, to say that was wrong. So it's like such the wrong place to like, those people are fucking wrong. See, because that's like, they're doing the same thing as like going to Mecca and going, fuck you Muslim son of a bitches, right? It's like, that's not the place for it, and you're separating like some pious, you know, your religion with the action of something you hate, whether it's suppression of women or, you know, jihadism or whatever it is, radical Islam or something. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, it's so bizarre, right, to me? It's like, if you, I don't know.
What do you think the purpose of it was?
Color revolutions. See, they're doing it right now in China. We're putting out this band called Bird Striking from Beijing. And this guy, he miraculously appears. He's working for these corporations. He's like a translator for the corporations. But for some reason, in his spare time and his money, he's built a club and a recording studio. And they started all these bands, all these rock bands in Beijing.
Psych bands.
Everything bands. But the interesting thing about it is they're trying to start a rock and roll revolution. Like, oh, the police cracked down on the kids. They won't let us have fun. We've been to the West. We want fun. That's what's behind it. There's nothing else. See what I'm saying? And there's big money. And that's how I found out about this band, is because I heard it on the BBC. Why is the BBC interested? And it's the other thing about the BBC, its purpose. See what I'm saying? It has a duality. Besides even informing and entertaining, there's the reason, another reason why the government funds it, or the World Service and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Chipping down walls, and it's reinforcing our culture and our designs about how we do it.